Hi! All right, welcome to week 4 of the Grit Gym Nutrition course. All right, so I want to start out with a tip called the planned exception. So impulse food decisions can lead down a slippery slope. So when we're busy, we're stressed, we're overwhelmed, it's common to overindulge. One of the best things that you can do to avoid feeling deprived while staying on track is to plan an exception. I know it sounds kind of counterproductive, but follow me here. So instead of making excuses, make a plan. This strategy allows for you to avoid guilt and really enjoy what you choose. So when you have a bad day or something crazy happens and you think you deserve a treat, and you go eat something on impulse, then you feel bad about it and you got to deal with the guilt behind it, and then it can spiral out of control, right? Because making these spur of the moment exceptions, you're not learning any discipline that way. And what happens is you can make those at any time. So you can kind of derail yourself where, if 3-4 times a week, you're just like, oh, I deserve to eat this way. You're not making the progress that you want to make. So a good way to avoid feeling deprived but still helping build that discipline is the planned exception. So when I say make a plan, something like, I don't know, on Tuesdays maybe you go out with your friends after work and have some margaritas and it's Taco Tuesday, or maybe Friday night at the end of the work week, you have a really decadent dessert, or something that you really, really enjoy. This is obviously going to be different for everybody, but some sort of food item you really enjoy, in a setting that you really enjoy, something for you to look forward to. We've talked about before, this is a lifestyle, right? We're going to be doing this forever. So we can be reasonable. It's okay. Nothing's off the table. But you do need to start building discipline. So by planning your exception and sticking to it, it gives you something to look forward to. It helps you build up discipline, and it keeps you from being deprived because you can still have whatever you want. You just can't have it whenever you want it. Another thing I want to touch on that I think is helpful is the concept of abstainer versus moderator. So at Grit, we find that people generally fall into one of these two categories. Now, it's not 100%, but generally speaking, one of these are going to resonate more with you, and knowing that information is going to help you plan accordingly. So if you were to have a small amount, say 2 bites of a food, would that make you feel like 2 bites of a food that you love? Maybe it's pizza, or maybe it's cake, or maybe it's donuts, I don't know. So let's say you are really craving a donut and you take 2 bites of a donut. Do you feel satisfied now that you've tasted it and tried it and now you can move on? Or does 2 bites make you a crazy person and it makes you feel even more deprived and it leaves you super unsatisfied? So that's kind of the litmus test for this. Personally, I have to be more of an abstainer. So I can make pretty strict rules, like I don't eat that, or I do eat this, unless it's a planned exception. But generally speaking, it's easier for me to just say no to a food than it is for me to just take a teeny little bit and then move on with my day. I would be happier just not even indulging in it to begin with. But we coach lots of people who, if you told them they could never have the 2 bites, they would go super panicky. They'd feel super deprived, and it's kind of pointless because they could have taken 2 bites and moved on. So, if you can have a small portion of a food, feel satisfied and move on, like, you're a moderator, and there's a lot of pros to being a moderator. But if you're a person like me, who, if you took 2 bites of a food and then you took it away, it would be worse than if I never ate it. So I'm an abstainer, and I tend to make a little bit stricter rules about what I do eat and what I don't eat on a daily basis. And once again, there's no right or wrong, but I think that knowing what you are is going to help set you up for success. Another thing that we can talk about too is your outlook. So we all know building new habits is not an easy task. It takes tons of upfront discipline to make changes. In discipline, it's hard. You know, it takes a lot of your energy, it takes a lot of your thought process, and that's why we do this slowly, and build in a lot of education and build in new habits and build and build and build, because we want that discipline to pay off in a new lifestyle. But, you know, you can make this as miserable or as great as you want. You know, if you think it sucks, it's gonna suck. If you think it's great, it's gonna be great. So keep in mind that, you know, you're the captain of your own ship here. Like you can make this whatever you want. And I think that you're going to find a lot more joy in the process if you can have a more positive outlook. So some ways that you can, you know, you can work on enjoying the process, and what appeals to you about the process is going to be different than what appeals to me or to anybody else. But, you know, you can try cooking new foods. You can shop at the store and pick out new produce that you've never tried before. You can have a journey through your palate and really get to know what all these awesome foods taste like and try cooking them and stuff. You know, trying new workouts, you know, different, like we see people all the time that have never strength trained before, and maybe now you can try it. Or, you know, there's a million different ways to move your body. So finding new sports to play or leagues to join, things like that. And then learning new skills like along the way, healthier, like habits that support, or like things that support your new lifestyle, like learning to cook, you know, like learning a sport, learning, you know, all the, like learning anything, like even just learning this information. Like I'm a lifelong learner. Like I thrive on learning new information. I love learning new information. And if you can be a person who thrives through this process by learning and really enjoying learning, that's another way that you can control your outlook. But my advice to you is try and find a way to make this as positive an experience as possible. And remember that if you make it hard and you are hard on yourself and you make it miserable, it will be just that. There's a lot of self-fulfilling prophecy wrapped up in this type of self-work. So micronutrients. So I know I'm kind of jumping around a little bit today, but bear with me. Switching to a more nutrient-dense diet will improve your body's overall functioning. I think that it's important to understand that micronutrients trump macronutrients. And what I mean by that, and I'm not saying that macronutrients aren't important. You should use your guidelines, those hand guidelines we've talked about, but it kind of goes back to the thing we talked about before, where do you need to eat less or do you need to eat better? And very often the answer is you need to eat better. And by eating better, I mean eating more micronutrients. I think that they're super, super important for your body's overall functioning. You're going to see any deficiencies float away. You're going to see when your body is fueled properly, like on the cellular level, you're going to feel better. But as important as I think they are, I don't want you to track your micronutrients. Micronutrient tracking can get crazy. Like it can be like a part-time job. You don't need to track your micronutrients. I want you to eat all the micronutrients, but don't worry about tracking them. It's not important. It's a waste of your time. But what you can do is implement strategies that are going to improve your micronutrient intake. The number one thing, and I know this sounds super corny, so you have to work with me here, but you can ask yourself in your head, but when you look at your plate, asking yourself, is this meal nourishing my body? Is the answer always going to be yes? No, of course not. But that's where that 80-20 rule comes in that we've talked about before. It's okay, not everything you eat has to be like jam-packed full of kale and radishes and all sorts of vegetables. But more often than not, when you look at your plate, you want to say, yeah, this is nourishing my body. This is feeding my cells, and it is going to fuel my body. And be proud of what you're eating. You deserve to eat good food. You deserve to have a body that functions well. You want to put calories in your body to fuel your food, but you just want to make them micronutrient rich calories. So you can eat, moving on to the next one, eat a variety of colors, and then also try new things. So when you go into the grocery store, you might see some crazy looking vegetable you've never tried or thought you didn't like. I challenge you to go in there, find a recipe for it, and try and cook it in a new way or a different way, or find things you've never tried and learn to cook them. And yeah, you're not going to love everything, but you might find some really awesome things along the way. So eating as much color as you can is going to really improve your micronutrient density in your food, or micronutrient ratios in your food. The reds, the purples, the greens, the whites, the yellows, like all the colors. So try and fit in as much color as you can. Should I buy organic produce? So this is like $1 million question that gets asked a lot. But something I want to let you guys in on is something that I learned a long time ago that surprised me, that might also surprise you. But what makes organic farming different from conventional farming is like it's not the use of pesticides, it's the origin of the pesticides used. So organic farms, I used to think, didn't use pesticides. So I thought if I bought organic produce, I wasn't putting pesticides in my body. That's not really true. There are different pesticides used. They are organic pesticides. They are found in nature as opposed to conventional farming, which has synthetic pesticides. But the thing that you need to keep in mind here is that just because something is from nature and not synthetic doesn't make it any less toxic or bad for you. Organic farming is still factory farming for the most part. I think that we run into problems, and listen, I eat factory farm regular fruits and vegetables all the time. But I think that if you're a person who's on the hunt for health and on the hunt for the best sources of food, you need to get away from the organic versus conventional debate and get into the factory farm versus local farm debate. When you can, in season, if you can go to a farmer's market, talk to a farmer, buy locally, buy something that was picked yesterday instead of a month ago, that's going to make all the difference. If you're more comfortable buying organic produce, like, I'm not here to judge, but I will say, in my opinion, I think that it is a waste of money in a lot of ways. I don't think that it has been shown to be safer to eat organic. The nutrient density of the food has tested the same time and time again. The pesticides are still there. They're just natural versus synthetic. This is a factory farming problem, not a organic versus conventional problem. So the best thing you can do is shop locally when you can. Get to know a farmer, find out when your food was picked, where the farm is, like, get to the source of your food, and that's going to serve you so much better. Another question we get a lot is, should I avoid GMOs? So the things that are the GMO crops are corn, soybeans, canola, and papaya. The thing with those things is that how much of your diet, if you are striving to eat a nutritious, healthy diet, how much of that stuff are you eating, right? Corn and soybeans are overwhelmingly almost all of the GMOs, but it's all in processed garbage. Like, it's in crappy processed food that's in a box. So if you're eating a nutritious diet, you aren't going to be eating a lot of corn and soybeans and canola and those kind of things. They're not things you're going to be eating. So do I think that it's worth stressing about? Not really, because we're talking about such a small portion of your diet. You know, I mean, you can get into a long discussion about genetically modifying food. You know, there's a lot of benefits to it, right? In a growing population of, they can make corn that's drought resistant, and, you know, soybeans that, you know, can withstand, you know, different climates, and they can do insane things to food now. And there's, you know, there's question out there about how safe it is. I think that we've been genetically modifying food for a long time. I mean, the whole farming system, we always pick the hardiest species, the ones that are the most pest resistant, the ones that can handle the frost the best. You know, we selectively pick plants and keep those going. So at what point it becomes GMO is a little fuzzy. But I think that this is one of those things where if you are doing the right thing most of the time, you really don't need to stress the super, super, super small amount of corn and soybeans and canola and papayas that would ever be in your diet. You know, you should be keeping that stuff to a minimum anyway. So here's a little mindset nugget for you guys to ponder this week. Adopting the right attitude can convert a negative stress into a positive one. So we all know that stress is bad for the body, and repeated stress can lead to disease and lots of problems. But there's a lot of research out there right now showing that if you can frame your stress in a positive light instead of a negative one, you can counteract a lot of those negative effects that stress causes. So when you feel your body you know, getting stressed, whether you get a tight chest or your heart races or you get flush or whatever your personal stress, you know, the way you react to stress happens, instead of leaning into that and just being super stressed out and having that negative attitude, if you can stop, take a breath and say, my body's preparing me for the challenges ahead, and look at it as your body trying to help you and having a more positive outlook on what's going on, that you acknowledge that there's challenges, but your body's on your team and it's going to be okay. You're gearing up for, you know, battle, basically. Starting this new nutritious lifestyle, starting any health journey is tough. It takes a lot of work and a lot of discipline, and it's stressful, right? Like, our kids are stressful, our jobs are stressful, our families are stressful, things are stressful. That's life. So adding this in on top of it can cause more stress. And also, when we're in stressful situations, we tend to let our nutrition go out the window. So if we can counteract this before we get there by framing our stress in a more positive light, we can avoid not only like the health issues that can go along with prolonged stress, but we can also stop ourselves from derailing our progress. And let's talk about homework. Okay, so you're going to continue journaling. You're going to continue to drink half your body weight in ounces outside of meals and workouts. You're going to continue eating 1 serving of veggies with each meal you eat. You're going to continue using your portion guidelines. You're going to continue to swap out your sweeteners and oils for better choices. And you're going to continue to use your meal plans for the upcoming week. And then on top of that, we're going to add in, this one's a fun one, plan an exception. So find, like we talked about, find a way, find a day, a time, a food, an experience that you really want to indulge in, and plan for that, and think about that in times when this gets hard. That, oh my God, I'm going to be hanging out with my friends, I'm going to eat this awesome food, it's going to be great. So find that happy space and plan that exception. And then the last one is going to be to ask yourself before each meal, is this meal nourishing my body? I know that it sounds cheesy, and I know that it is a weird thing, like, at first, but after you do it a few times, it's going to be second nature. You can, of course, do it in your head. You don't have to, like, do it out loud in front of your whole family. But yeah, ask yourself that and really start to analyze how many times you're saying yes and how many times you're saying no, and see what you can do to change that scale. But I will see you guys next week. Thanks for watching. See you later.